Reddit stories from r/AskReddit. What adult thing seemed super scary as a kid that you found out wasn't bad when you grew up? Not living at home with my family. Yeah, when my girls were younger, they said they'd live with us forever in our tiny house. I asked, well, what if you get married? The response was that the husbands would sleep on the couch, while they would continue to share their bedroom with each other. I would actually love it if they stayed. But my wife thinks they should eventually move out. Spoil sport. Cooking. My parents aren't good cooks, so I was terrified of giving myself food poisoning or burning the house down. Turns out, if you follow a recipe, it's easy enough. I worked in kitchens for like 10 years and learned as long as you know some of the basics you can really cook 'em up anything. Whether it's good or not is up for debate, but I can make some weird type of soup with a bunch of old ingredients. I thought fires were way more common. I was scared that every day an electrical outlet might spark, gas might ignite, or anything else that was going to make me stop, drop and roll. Killer bees, quicksand, and being on fire. The three things I thought were going to be a far bigger problem than they are. Add volcanoes to that, I was terrified that a volcano was going to pop up in my backyard. I was always afraid of getting alcohol poisoning. Never pieced it together that I actually needed to drink. Oh wow. And here I recently had to explain to a college girl that alcohol poisoning is real, a very real thing that can kill you. She thought it was just a myth or something to scare people and had never seen any such thing happen in her friend group. I had to explain it's unlikely to get alcohol poisoning from beer, wine, mixed drinks, but if you chug a fifth of bourbon, vodka, tequila, etc., you could easily die if your system can't handle it. The first time someone drinks, they do not know that alcohol takes a little time before you feel a buzz. I knew a guy who, on his first time drinking, thought a shot will get you drunk instantly. It didn't, so he continued to take shots until he was projectile vomiting and passed out in a hallway. I wasn't there to stop it, but I saw videos and it looked like it sucked. He probably had acute alcohol poisoning. Make my own food. When I was little, I thought I was too stupid to make food, or remember to eat, so I would just die. But there is this thing called hunger that reminds me to eat, so I'm still alive. Smiley face. Making food is easy, but deciding what to eat is a daunting task. Don't tell him about the cleaning the dishes, it might break his spirit. Drinking. Apparently you can do it in moderation. 1 or 2 drinks I'm good and can quit. After the 3rd drink I get a buzz and want to chase it till I'm done with 15 drinks and drunk as hell. You are me. Alcoholism runs in my family very discreetly, unless you count my aunt and her husband housing a 24 of Corona and driving home. I have been pulled over for Dewey but got off on a technicality. No record, and I really tried to moderate my drinking. The DA talked to me outside of court that day and told me if I was that high functioning with that BAC level 1 needed help. I wish I stopped, but I've only gotten a little better. Literally everything, because I am a child of helicopter parents. Did you know that shopping is not scary and dangerous at all? I know now. My dad thinks everything is a fire hazard. Literally asked me if I was trying to start a fire because I threw something pretty hot in the trash. Your dad and mine should hang out. He literally taught us to swim because what if you are in a plane that goes down in the ocean? We don't fly. We never had. Any place we would fly to was over land. The paranoia he distilled in us. Sex never sounded like fun as a kid. I mean, the biology of it sounds kind of horrifying. One person sticks a part of them into a part of you and moves it around. I remember as a child wondering who thought that up and how can that be enjoyable? Though my parents did discuss sex with me, as far as informing me of the basics, it was always considered a serious topic. It was something married people did, like taxes and going to work. I spent a long time being very afraid of it and actually kinda hoped I died before I had to face doing it. Yeah, it wasn't so bad and got way better with age and maturity. When I was 8 I discovered how sex works, and was utterly repulsed by the idea of it, as you mentioned. I also was not told that it felt good, so I could not imagine why anyone would do it except for having a baby. I was so repulsed that I decided I would be gay. Didn't know how being gay worked back then either. I was 8 after all, so I thought I could choose to be gay. For 2 weeks I was gay until my friend told me gay people have sex too, and it sounded even worse to me than straight sex. That's the story of how I was gay for 2 weeks in the 3rd grade. Great story, man. Authority figures. No matter how scary, well put together, intimidating some people seem, they're just that, people. Probably just as insecure and flawed as the rest of us, some people are just good at donning the mask. Not to say some people don't deserve to be in a position of authority, but that doesn't make them better than others, either. I'm literally a grown-ass man. I'm an doctor. But I'm a juvenile delinquent at heart, and every time I see the cops in the ed a little part of me thinks they're after me. Every time. I'm a state tax collector with the civil powers of a sheriff and work closely with police on a regular basis. Still, every time I see an officer I worry that are about to arrest me. The basement. You went down there? No response. It checks out. They went down there. For me it was having responsibilities, but it's getting scary again. Feel you. I thought the Bermuda Triangle would have a much bigger impact on my life. The Bermuda Triangle scared me so much. Laughing face, also meteorites hitting the Earth and that the Earth might get absorbed by a black hole. Are you me? Meteors were the top villain in the world from my perspective as a child. Driving. I was always afraid of getting lost in the streets while driving. My dad was a municipal guard so he knew almost all the streets, but I didn't know anything and never knew where the hell I was. Now I can go anywhere, and always know how to come back. I feel bad for anyone who grew up driving only with GPS. I spent a lot of driving years figuring out every street in Queens just by driving around them. Nowadays I can be trying to meet a friend, be literally 2 blocks away from them, and tell them to meet me 2 blocks east. And they'll have no idea where to go. Not necessarily an adult thing, but drugs. In school they made it sound like everywhere you went there would be someone pressuring you to do drugs. Thanks, DARE. I have long since learned that is not the case. The anti-drug stuff was everywhere when I was young. Growing up, I was convinced that doing drugs would lead you to a life of ruin. Every drug would alter reality to the point where you'd go insane, and murder your family, and blah blah blah. When I grew up I did some drugs. I had fun doing some drugs. I never did too many drugs or went crazy on drugs or did crazy drugs. My experiences were pleasant, and I look at them fondly. Not once was I ever told any of that in the drug education I was fed as a child. I never once heard anything that resembled my experience. Literally no one said to me, "Weed is pleasant. It is enjoyable. Ecstasy can be fantastic. Magic mushrooms can change how you see the world around you and your place in it." I know those people exist. I suspect that my experiences with drugs reflect the experiences of a lot of others. I also suspect that the voices I heard from when the anti-drug message was presented to me were those of the addicts, the drug fiends, and generally the outliers who were nothing like me even before they did drugs. In the end, I was left with the conclusion that the people educating me about drugs were either lying outright or lying by omission. They were not trying to be objective and speak to me like a real person. They were lying and trying to make me afraid. And I think less of them for it. If you have to lie to make your point, that should tell you something about the value of your point, and you as a person. Buying a car. As long as you are conscious of how much you can afford as a monthly payment, how much you can put down if you choose to, and how much the insurance will cost, it's not too big of a headache. It just always seemed so overwhelming, but now that I'm in the process of buying my first car from a dealership, I've been surprised with how easy it is. The tricky part is sticking to the budget. My husband and I went to a dealer to buy his car. The salesman knew exactly what we were willing to pay. He proceeded to show us cars way out of our range. He convinced us that this one car was more affordable but did not name an exact price. So we go into the finance guy and he tells us how much the monthly payments will be. It was definitely out of our range. They thought that if they got us in there and got us to like one particular car that we would cave. I said it's not going to happen and started to get up. He went and got a higher-up boss and they lowered the price of the car and they offered more for our trade-in has a lower interest rate and a longer-term loan. They pretty much met our budget. Sleeping alone lol. There was a point where I was really afraid of the dark. I just wanted night to be over as fast as possible. Now it's the other way around. Yeah, I miss sleeping alone, and peace and quiet. I thought quicksand was gonna be a way bigger issue. The whole stop, drop, and roll was drilled into us so much as kids. I thought people were catching on fire left and right. They really did hammer that in, and yet there are so many internet videos of people catching on fire and running around like an asshole. One of the days they were teaching that in school the fire department came and they stuck like Velcro fire patches on us and made us roll until we got them off. Driving. The concept of controlling a 2-ton metal vehicle while simultaneously avoiding other 2-ton metal contraptions seemed daunting. And the fact that everyone just follows arbitrary lines painted on the ground? Seems insane. Admittedly, when someone doesn't follow the lines like they're supposed to, people die, so, probably better to be a little cautious of the 2-ton death machines. 2-lane highways still kind of seem like a very trusting situation. I mean, one false move and bam. We're only about 2 feet away from death, the entire ride. Math with letters in it. Good thing it doesn't affect real life. Nah dude, I had a guy with a gun jump me the other day and made me solve for X. Paying bills and taxes. I mean, I don't love doing it, it's all a real pain and you have to set up and stay within a budget. But it seemed adults were always telling me I should love being a kid because at least I don't need to pay bill and taxes. The refrain seemed to be, sure, as a kid you have almost no power over your own life as it's run by adults who are constantly willfully misleading you to manipulate you for their own ends. You have to go through the social gladiator sports of school. All while school alone is so exhausting and onerous you would do anything to get away from it. Sure, all that, but at least you don't need to worry about bills and taxes. It really seemed like it must be so awful. I think this one depends a lot on your job and location. I've started my own business last year, and taxes are a lot more complicated than before, when I just was employed and basically everything tax-related was automated to a point where you couldn't fuck anything up, at worst you didn't get the best possible tax refund. Now, with writing my own bills and have to keep track of income and expenses, and what can I claim as tax reduction, etc., this is a whole new level. The fact that I went from employed to you make so much money on the side that you need to pay taxes in advances basis on what the state guess you may earn in 1 year didn't help, too. Simply because I didn't put enough aside for this, because I'm stupid. Still, wouldn't want to go back to being a child. Sleeping with the lights off. Turns out monsters can't see in the dark very well and leave you alone. Well, maybe you're monsters. Having kids. I got pregnant at 21, not a child but you know, way too young, destroy your life, no future, it's so difficult, blah blah blah. Taking care of my babies is easy. It's everything else that's difficult. Keeping them alive is easy, raising them to eventually be self-sufficient decent adults is another thing. None of it. Adulthood is terrifying. All jokes aside, this is the most relatable answer. Like yay, now I get to work 79% of my year just to barely survive and have the government wanna take more and more of the little bit I do actually get. Adulthood is noise. Don't tell the kids though, let their dreams crumble slowly over time. Teacher, you could be whoever you want to be. Me, I want to be an astronaut for NASA. Teacher, let's think realistic here, you could be a custodial engineer for NASA. What would happen to my stuffed animals? I don't even know where they are now, but at the time, it was life-threatening. I used to have a recurring nightmare about having to leave urgently and not being able to fit all my stuffed animals in my bag. Truly horrifying. Dentist, I like going to dentists now. You should see a psychiatrist, you absolute madman. Too expensive, can't afford. Sex. Now this is the truth. Going up the stairs late at night. Still have this. Especially when the lights are off. No idea why. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Reddit stories like this.